Hey there folks, I'm Alex the Whyzer Owl, and today we're going to be taking a look at bag theory and what's in my bag. So in today's rather lengthy video, I'm going to be providing you the framework in which I operate to build my bag, and then sort of explain my beliefs by doing an in the bag alongside of it. My hope for this is that regardless of what brand you throw, you can take something out of this because I'm giving you more of a methodology than just what the individual molds in my bag are. So let's get into the first thing that I strongly believe about a bag, and that is to build your bag based around the region in which you play. What I mean by this is the bag of someone who's playing in Oklahoma, where it's mostly open and very windy, is going to look a lot different than someone who plays in the woods in New England. You need different things to make yourself successful. So being from the New England area where we're playing a lot in the woods, what I put a lot of emphasis on to be successful is being in the middle of the fairway. Because when you're in the woods, if you get off the fairway, it can be difficult to get a birdie, let alone your par. So for me, I've put a priority in discs that will keep me in the middle of the fairway, meaning they're a fairly neutral flight disc. Once we've established what sort of shot is going to make you successful where you most often play, I want you to identify the one disc that you have the most confidence in executing that type of shot. Not the disc you necessarily throw the most, but the disc that when the chips are down, this is the one that you're reaching for. This is going to serve to be the core of your bag that everything is going to be built off of. So to explain that point, for me, that disc is my 750 F3. This disc for me is my crutch. If I don't feel confident in my drive or I'm not quite sure what to do off the tee, I'm reaching for the 750 F3. If I'm playing match play and my opponent went off the fairway and I just need to execute a shot to take the hole, F3. If I just needed to pipe a drive to win a tournament, F3. This thing is my crutch. And this disc is what everything in my bag is going to be built off of. So from that core disc now, you're going to start building different ranges of that exact disc. This is going to be the backbone of your bag. So for me, I'm building my bag to be strong up the middle, meaning I want something that's going to fly relatively straight for all of my different range increments. I want a short range putter, a mid-range, I have my fairway, a control driver, and then a distance driver that are all going to fly very similarly to this disc because it's a shot that I'm confident in the shape of. So let's get into how I'm building based off of this disc. So for a throwing putter for short range, I am building off of my F3 with a Glow 400 PA3. This is a disc that I can throw flat, and it's going to maybe go a little bit to the arm side and then come back and net straight. This is a disc that I feel really confident throwing under 300 feet. Even if I don't throw this 300 feet in the air all the time, if there's a tee shot that's under 300 feet, chances are I'm throwing this disc because I trust it throwing hard, that I can get it at least within range of where I'm comfortable putting. I would rather throw a putter hard than take something off of a mid-range because I feel like when I slow down and take things off, my form gets a little bit wonky. And that's going to be sort of continuous throughout the bag, that I would rather power up a disc than power down a disc. So that's what my short range putter is. It's Glow PA3. So one distance range up and one down from my F3. To get that same flight, I'm accomplishing that with a 750 M3. This is an old run. It's got a Haunter die on it because I love my Pokemon. It's got a tournament ace on it on hole 6 of South at the Hollows, which I believe is the only ace that's in that pin placement, which is pretty cool. But this disc, pretty much the same deal. If I throw it flat, it's going to turn a little bit to my arm side before fading back for a net neutral flight. I trust this disc up to about 325, and I don't have to worry about it turning much on me. If I want to put a little bit of hyzer on it and get it to flip, I can throw it a little bit further. And that's what I'll do if I need to push the distance of this a little bit more, just to get that longer straight flight. So that brings us back to the 750 F3, which is the heart and soul of my bag. It's going to have the same flight that I've been trying to mimic with the shorter range discs. This one I feel confident throwing out to about 350 feet without having to worry about any deviation in its flight path. It's going to slide a little bit, finish forward, skip straight. This is just a great disc for me and a great sweet spot range for me, because it's something that's a safe throw on many different types of holes, because you'll see a lot of those like 325 to 375 foot holes in New England. So this is really a workhorse for me. It's not just what I'm most confident in, it's what I throw a lot of the time too. But if I need to get a little bit further than my F3, I'm going with this Schusterick Core Team 750 H3V2. If I was trying to find a longer version of my F3, this is the perfect one, because it's got that same net neutral flight with a forward finish, just longer. This, pretty much up to 380, I feel pretty confident in. I can get it out there, it's got unreal glide, and it's just such a nice, straight, buttery flight. It's almost the exact clone of my F3, just longer. So if I really need to unload on something, I'm going up to the 400 X3. This disc is going to give me a little bit more turn than the ones before it, but it's going to give me a little bit of a harder fade too. I used to have a different 400 X3, but it's now in the water at Maple Hill. I'm still trying to beat this in to be just where I want it to be. But this will give me that long, straight flight, and I can get this probably out to 415, 420, and it carries that straight line. Again, that's where I play. I'm building my bag to have those straight shots for all the different ranges. So let's review what got us here. We first identified what we need to be successful in the region that we're playing in. With me being in New England, I'm putting a focus on staying in the middle of the fairway, and I've identified that the disc that does that best for me and I'm most confident in is my 750 F3 for its neutral straight flight. To fill out the distances in my bag, I've added a putter, a mid-range, a control driver, and a distance driver that have that same flight path. So regardless of what distance I'm at, I'm confident in that shot shape. Now that I have that flight path at different distances in my bag, I can start building to the left and to the right of the fairway by adding in discs that complement my backbone. Some people decide to add different molds that'll give you that different flight path. But for me, when possible, I prefer to keep the same mold in a different stage of wear or a different plastic type, because the hand familiarity is important to me, and it just mentally having the same disc with different flight paths just clicks for me and gives me confidence. So why don't we stick with the distance driver, and I'll show you how I now build off my backbone. So to open up the understable arm side of the fairway for my X3, I have this 400 X3. That's a super flippy run that we got for the Ruler of the Roost. I can throw this flat and it's gonna just hold the turn all the way. I can throw it on a little bit of a hyzer flip. It'll flip up the flat and then turn. I like using this for those long turnover shots. I'm starting to work in the long distance power roller, and I enjoy this for uphill drives that I need to get that extra distance because it's got that understability. So that's working off of the center. So moving on to the shot that's going to go across my body and be overstable, I have the Chris Dickerson Core Team X3s. These things are beefy, beefy, beefy. They pretty much fly like an X2. So this is a disc that I'm going to use as a headwind fighter if I need that same distance off the tee in the wind, or if I just need something that's going to finish to the right with a skip. Same mold, 3 different flight characteristics that have all different options in the fairway for me. Bringing it down to the control drivers. For my understable shot, I actually don't have a different H3 V2 yet. I'll get into this more in the second part of the video on what I'm looking to maybe add this off season, but we'll get there when we get there. So I can throw this on a little bit of an anhyzer and it will hold that turn, but it's not really as understable as I'd like for this, and it's something I'm trying to work in this off season. To build off of that to get a little bit more stable, I have a fresh 400 H3 V2. It's got my own stamp on it, and this run is a little bit more stable. It stays straight, it doesn't really want to turn a lot, and it's got a nice fade at the end. If I throw it into a headwind, it stays pretty straight and it'll fly almost the exact same as that Shoestrick one, but it's a little bit more overstable. So this is where we're going to start deviating a little bit from keeping with the same mold, because I just don't have a super beefy run of H3 V2. When I need a lot more hook or a lot more headwind or some more skip at the end, I'm reaching for a 400 H1 V2. This is probably the prettiest disc in my bag. It was dyed by MacArt88. Check him out on Instagram. He's wildly talented. But this disc I can throw really hard and it's going to stay straight, dump. If I put Whyzer on it, it's going to hold that Whyzer and get a big skip at the end. So this is what I'm throwing in the wind, or if I really need to get that right side action from my control driver slot. So I carry one more disc in this category and it's wildly overstable. This is what I use for stupid headwinds, low skip shots, overhands, get out of trouble. It is an original 400G H1. This is an absolute hog. It's also got a great Gengar die on it. That's absolutely sick. This is one of my favorite dies that I've ever done. But this disc only comes out if I'm in trouble or if I need to do something bizarre. I don't have an X1. I don't need an X1. This is plenty of beef for me. X1s are expensive and tough to find. If you're looking for something that's got a similar overstability for those skip shots, go get yourself an H1. These things are hogs. So bringing it down to my fairway drivers, I've got my 750 F3 in the middle, and then working off of that for the slightly understable, I have a old run 400 F3 with the Team Dacey stamp on it. This is sort of my workably understable disc. It's not gonna be a disc that I can throw hard and it's just gonna cut and roll. This is the disc that I throw hard and flat and it's just gonna gently track to the arm side and then finish out straight. This disc really serves for just that long gradual turnover. I can Whyzer flip this to flat, but if I need something super understable, it's not gonna do that. It's broken itself into a really cool place that definitely has its own slot, but if I need something more understable, this isn't gonna do it. So when I need that sort of shot, I am going to my F7s. I've got this beautiful Team Stamp F7 in 400 plastic that's a little bit stable for an F7. So this is sort of my Whyzer flip to turnover shot, that if I need to get that more further straight then turn, I can get it to turn a little bit later than that F3. But again, that's not gonna cut and roll and get down as quickly. When I need to roll or get that really quick turn, I've got this beat up 400 F3 in purple that I can put this down on a roller for a bunch of different distances. If I want to throw it flat, it's going to get down really quick. If I throw it on a Whyzer, I can get it to go out and then curl over. So this is a really useful disc to have in my bag. I really just worked in the roller this year, and it's been a pretty helpful trick to have in my bag. So I've been enjoying the F7 a lot more because I've been rolling more. So back to my mid-range shots. This 750 F3 is not just my stable mid-range, it also does double duty as my understable mid-range. I can put it on a slight anhyzer, I can throw it flat and really try to lay into it to get that turnover. So this really does two slots for me right now, but we'll be revisiting that in part 2. If I need something a little bit more stable than this, I'm still sticking with the M3, and it's a newer run 750 M3. I find that these are a lot more stable than the older runs, and that they're more torque resistant, so I can really power this one up, and it's just gonna ride dead straight and finish a little bit across my body. But if I want to throw it on a hyzer, it's really resistant to standing up. It's a really cool run in that way, that if I put it on a hyzer, it sort of works for that overstable shot because it's going to hold that hyzer and skip. So I can get all of my mid-range shots covered with just these two discs. The M3 is magic. You should definitely throw these. And back down to the putters. So I work off of this 400 Glow PA3, which is pretty straight and really glidey, by the way. So if I need something that's going to be more understable, and probably my favorite disc to throw in my bag, it's this super warped and beat up 200 PA3. This has seen some stuff, and this disc is magic. I can throw this flat and gently, and it's just going to stay straight and turn. It's like a slower version of that F3 that I have that's beat up. It's just a very long, gentle turn that's going to finish flat. I can throw it hard on a hyzer flip, and it's going to slowly stand up and then turn. And it holds that turn for so long. The turn is so late. It's great. This is such a fun disc for me to throw. If you can beat up a PA3, do it. So I mentioned that the 400 Glow PA3 is super glidey. This 400 Spectrum Infinite Discs Dragon Lady PA3 is nowhere near as glidey and a little bit more stable. So if I'm trying to throw something that I need distance control on and a little bit of finish, or there's a little bit of headwind, I'm reaching for this disc. It's a very similar slot to this one, very similar flight path, just less glide. Because sometimes for those up shots, you need it to sit a little bit more and get down quicker. That's what this does. This is really the biggest overlap I have right now in my bag, but because of the glide difference, I've justified carrying both modes. So if I need something a little bit more stable than my Dragon Lady, I'm going with the Whyzer Owl stamped 350RX A2. This is a lightweight 152 gram A2, and this is my finesse forehand disc. It's really flat, it's really light, so my weak little forehand that I don't have a lot of power on, if I need a distance approach shot with a flick, this is what I'm going with because it flies like an A2, just further. If I need something that's going to fade a little bit harder than that, I'm going to a regular 300 A2. This is a little bit more stable. I can't get as much distance on it. But again, I really like this for those flex forehand approach shots and for backhand hyzers that are just going to sort of sit and dig. This is a great disc for that. Great headwind approach disc. Definitely recommend A2s. And then when the wind is really ripping and I just need something that's going to do nothing but go dead right, I have this really overstable Feathers of the Fall flat top 400 A2. This thing is a shorter version of my H1. All it wants to do is get down to the ground. You need that super meat hooky disc for the wild winds or the big skip shots. So that's how I round out my throwers. So the last thing that I really have to show you in my bag are my putting putters. These are just 300 Whyzer Owl stamped PA3s. When you're building your bag for putters, it's really whatever feels the most comfortable in your hand because most putters are going to behave similarly within 30 feet. My biggest recommendation is if you're in a putting rut, probably 90% of the time, it's not the mold's fault. It's you're doing something mechanically or you're just not confident. Stick with your putter. It might not be the same individual disc, but stick with the same mold, build that comfortability with it and that confidence with it, and you're going to see the benefits. It's very tough to get in a rhythm if you're constantly changing your putter. So if any spot in your bag should be locked down, it should be your putting putter. Keep it in there as long as you can unless you really feel that you have to make a change. So that really wraps up the nuts and bolts of this video. I think I'm going to end part 1 here. In part 2, I'm going to get into the other items that I have in my bag that aren't necessarily discs, because I think that I carry some important things that could help you in your game inside my bag. But I'm also going to go through the holes that I still feel like I have in my bag from this season, what discs I'm thinking about maybe adding to fill those holes, and then going through some of the substitutions I'm playing around with making for next tournament season and why. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Make sure you hit that like button, mash that subscribe button, ring the bell, and until next time, play Whyzer.